Hello, it's Keith from IELTS Speaking Success, and today I'm speaking to an amazing lady, Vicki Hollett. She's a published author, a teacher and a YouTuber. Today she is the candidate for the IELTS Speaking Test. I will be the examiner. Do you want to learn some natural English? Do you want to see how she does? Then start watching. Hi Vicki.
Hello Keith, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm great. And it's fantastic to see you here. Thank you so much for coming to join us.
I'm delighted to be here. It's going to be interesting.
It is indeed. Today, Vicki, you're going to be doing the IELTS test as a candidate. How do you feel?
A little bit nervous, but mostly curious, because normally I'm the one asking the questions. So it's going to be very interesting to see what it's like to be on the other side of it.
Absolutely, yes. Interesting for me as well as an examiner. So before we begin the test, let's talk a little bit about you. Tell me and the people watching a little bit about you and what you do.
Okay, I'm an English teacher and I'm a writer as well. So I've written lots of books, textbooks, about English for people like Oxford University Press and Pearson. And I'm also these days a YouTuber. So I make videos with my husband Jay, and we're called Simple English Videos on YouTube. And we look at all sorts of different features. They're videos for English learners.
Fantastic. And they are great videos. I've seen a lot of them. I like the way you and Jay work together on those.
Well, he's American and I'm British, so there's a bit of banter there.
Right, both accents going on as well. Excellent. Well, listen, Vicki, without further ado, let's jump into the test. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll do it as a normal IELTS test. So it has a certain level of formality about it. And I'll get my clock as well, because I do need my watch. Right, so this is the IELTS speaking test taking place online today. And the candidate here is Vicki and the examiner is Keith O'Hare. Hello, can you tell me your full name, please?
Victoria Hollett.
And what shall I call you?
Vicki.
Vicki, okay. So Vicki, I've seen your ID card. In this first part of the test, I'm going to ask you some questions about yourself. Let's talk first of all about your hometown. Tell me about the town where you live.
Okay, well, these days I live in Philadelphia in the US, which is, I think, about the 5th or 6th largest city in America. And it is a very big city, and we live slap bang in the middle of it in a little terraced house surrounded by skyscrapers. Right.
And is it a good place for children?
There are some children growing up here now. A lot of families used to move out of the city in the 1970s and 80s when it was rather a dangerous place. But these days, a lot of families have been moving back, so we've got lots of kids on our streets.
Great.
Who we know now.
What do tourists like to do in your hometown?
We're a big art centre. We have the Philadelphia Museum of Art and the Barnes Museum, some very famous artworks there. We have the Rocky statue, of course, because Rocky was filmed here. And so people like to run up the steps of the art museum like Rocky did in the film. We have lots of...
I'm going to move on now and talk about sleep. How many hours do you sleep every day?
This is a really strange question for me because my sleep is very erratic. Sometimes I'll only sleep, say, 4 hours, or sometimes it will be 6 hours, or sometimes it will be 10.
And do you think it's good to have a nap during the day?
Sometimes I can't help it.
Right. And did you sleep more in the past than you do now?
I think I sleep about the same amount. as I did before. It hasn't changed much. My husband says I have no circadian rhythm.
Right. Now, let's move on and talk about maths. When did you start to learn maths?
Oh, I learnt maths at school when I was a kid, and I always loved maths, actually. It was a really enjoyable subject for me. And at one point, I was thinking of studying it at university, but I wasn't so keen on I wasn't so keen on studying other sciences like physics and chemistry. So it never happened.
Is maths important?
Oh, absolutely. Wow, yes. I mean, even from simple arithmetic, when you go around the supermarket, you need to be able to add up and check your bill. I need arithmetic to do my taxes every year. But also, I think some of the larger concepts of maths are quite interesting as well.
And what is a good way to learn maths?
I think a good teacher is essential. I think I enjoyed maths so much because I had inspiring teachers who made it fun and interesting.
Right. Okay. So now, Vicki, I'm going to give you a topic and I'd like you to talk about it for 1 to 2 minutes. You have 1 minute to prepare and you can take some notes if you wish. Do you understand?
I do, and I'm definitely going to take some notes. Students who take notes do better.
They do, don't they? Good advice. I can tell you're a good teacher. So your topic, and I will share this with you on the screen. So your topic is describe a piece of information that you think is not correct. Okay, so now remember, you've got 1 to 2 minutes to talk about this, so don't worry if I stop you. I'll tell you when the time is up. Can you start talking now, please?
Okay. I've often heard it said that Americans are more direct than British people. And where have I heard or read this? Well, I've heard people say it. It's sort of common folklore that British people are very, very polite and Americans are much more direct. And I don't think it's true. Having lived in America for a few years and being British myself, I think that there are the same, very similar standards of politeness that go on in both cultures. But the way of being polite is slightly different. So what will happen in the UK is that we will be worried about disturbing people or interfering with them or getting in their way. Whereas what will happen in the US is that people will be more concerned about being friendly and open and warm. And these things get confused in people's minds. So people will go to the US and say, why are people being so warm and friendly? And people will go to the UK and think, why are people standoffish and leaving me alone and not welcoming me? And what it's really about is that it's just two different sides of politeness that are going on. And so I think the idea that Americans are more direct is rather not quite the right way of putting it, because there are lots of things that Americans do that are quite indirect, like us. So, for example, if I say, if you want me to pick my coat up off the floor, you might say, oh, is that your coat?
That's great. I'm going to have to stop you there, Vicki. Thank you very much. Good. So we've been talking about a piece of information that you think is not correct. I'd like to go on now and ask you a few more questions related to that. So let's talk first of all about information. Do you believe everything that you read?
Certainly not. You can't do that these days, I think, with the internet. There's so much false information out there. In comparison to the past, we didn't have these sorts of difficulties, but it's getting worse and worse.
Okay. How can we identify reliable sources of information?
It's really important to try and work out where the information came from these days. And tracking it down can sometimes be difficult. Sometimes it can be obvious when you look at it and read it. It just doesn't ring true, or there are errors that you know, or things that are being overstated. Exaggeration is often a clue. If things are exaggerated rather than factual, that's an indication that this piece of information might not be correct. So the other thing is there are some organisations now that do fact check a lot of the news that we receive, and they're worth looking at. There's a university in the south, I think, that does some wonderful fact checks of news organisations and also politicians, of course, to see how accurate they've been. And they're worth looking at. There are also wonderful websites like Snopes, which you can go to if you've heard, and sometimes if there's an internet meme or story, and you can go to Snopes and find fact-checking of that.
Okay. So how has the way that we access information changed in recent years?
I think before, news sources were credible and believable, generally speaking, for most people. It's rather different now because there has been an attack on the media by a lot of politicians claiming that they're producing fake news. It may be attractive for people to believe conspiracy theories, and more of them are spreading. So that's another issue, that you have larger quantities of fake news going around. And also, a lot of the places where people are getting news now are not regulated in the way that newspapers and media organisations have been regulated in the past.
So let's talk about jobs and information. In which kind of jobs do people need to give information?
Journalists and teachers all need to give information. But I think it's true for most people. If I were in any job, it would be strange if I didn't have to give information to help my fellow workers. I mean, few people work on their own these days. You need to get along with the people you're working with. And if you can't give information clearly and correctly, it's going to be a problem, isn't it?
And do you think the ability to find information will be an important skill in the future?
I think it already is an important skill. The ability to show that you can access and find, and also, I've forgotten the word I was going to use. Curate different pieces of information. Curation has become a skill that wasn't so necessary in the past. But, for example, if you can gather together different bits of information and make them easily accessible when you need them. Because a lot of the time people are going for information at the moment, looking for information at the point that they need it now. We just want to go get the information we need and leave. I mean, look at the success of YouTube videos like this. We all use them to do all sorts of everyday tasks now, like how to screw a wall, how to put a screw in a wall, or how to learn English.
On that note, it brings us to the end of the test. Thank you very much, Vicki. Brilliant. Well done, Vicki. That was great. So after your IELTS test, how do you feel?
A little nervous. I wonder what score I'm going to get. I was thinking to myself, you should get a second or third conditional in if you can, because then it will impress the examiners. But it was actually very hard to do. I know it's hard to do.
Exactly.
I know it's hard for my students.
Third conditional is always very impressive, but they're hard to fit in when you're thinking on the top of your head, right?
Yes. It was hard to think of things to say, actually. And I'm quite glad that I had this experience, because it's good to put yourself in the situation of a student sometimes.
I totally agree. I think it's interesting because students often say it's hard to find ideas. And when you're giving a class, you can give lots of ideas. But when you're on the spot, it's hard, isn't it, to think of things?
That's right. And sometimes you think of things that wouldn't be appropriate. You know, how political should I get? I was thinking. I was
wondering how far into Donald Trump you would go.
Exactly. Trump was coming to mind.
But I thought it was great. I mean, I love the language. I was listening as an examiner to the language as well, the things you came out with. Some great collocations. There were the idiomatic expressions, you know, like slap bang in the center of Philadelphia.
Oh, yes.
Really good.
Well, nice I really wasn't. That's interesting because, of course, I wasn't listening to myself speaking. So I was more conscious about what I was producing, but I wasn't listening to what I was actually producing. Yeah.
But it was great, and I'll do a kind of a full review somewhere below for people to look at the natural language that you used. So I guess as we wrap up here, Vicki, I mean, you mentioned at the start the videos that you do, the work that you do. If people want to find out more, where can they find you?
They can go to look up Simple English Videos, and we have a website where you can see all our videos, and they're nicely arranged. And we also have a YouTube channel. So Simple English Videos on YouTube. And you'll find me there with my husband, Jay. He works on it with me. We've been making a video every week for some time, for several years. So there's quite a lot of stuff there on grammar, vocabulary, lots of social English and politeness things as well. And also lots of British and American English stuff, because of course he's American and I'm British, so we have that going on as well.
That's great, and that's one of the things that attracted me actually. And I know I've referred your videos to students because the kind of the banter between the British and the American and the accents, it's really good practice, and especially for IELTS students, right, to get that exposure. I think it's really good. Great.
Yeah.
Vicki, thank you very much. Lovely to see you, and stay in touch.
Okay, it's been a pleasure. Bye-bye now.
Bye. And that was Vicki from Simple English Videos. Thank you so much to Vicki for coming and being a candidate. Didn't she do a good job? Not bad at all. I've done a brief language analysis down here in the show notes. If you want to see more, go and visit the website IELTS Speaking Success, search for Vicki, and you can watch the video and see more language down there. In the meantime, I recommend you check out Vicki's website and YouTube channel, Simple English Videos. There's a lot of stuff there, really good to help you learn English and build up your fluency and confidence. Big thank you again. If you like this video, do subscribe and leave me a comment. I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye-bye.